Hello from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. We've all made it through a very challenging time with the snow, the ice, the bitter cold that continues, and all the troubles that have come along with that. Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey joins me shortly. We'll talk about the historic week of Kentucky weather. But first, the housing market in central and southern Kentucky is moving forward, starting 2026 in a strong position. Sales and median prices are up across the board. What are buyers looking for these days, and can you get a good deal right now in the current environment? Joining us from Bluegrass Realtors are Mike Inman, who is president of Bluegrass Realtors, and Daniel Carmack, who is treasurer of Bluegrass Realtors. Gentlemen, welcome. We appreciate you very much for coming in today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in this situation, we had to shuttle you in
yes.
to get here. Is it hard to show property in a situation like this?
It's a little tricky. It's hard to clear the doorways. So, and sellers always want to have a good path cleared to get into their property. But it's hard to do it when you have 2 inches of ice basically in front of the doors.
On the other hand, it shows how resilient a house is, right?
That's right. It's a challenge, but realtors are always up to face those challenges and take care of our clients and get it done.
Just continue to get those calls at least.
That's what we want to happen. We want them to continue calling us snow or rain, no matter what.
What should we know about new numbers that have just been released about the housing market in central and southern Kentucky?
Well, I would say we finished the year very strong. We got a pretty good boost. We had transactions increased by 8% in December. We had 1,117 sales transactions in December. That's a pretty good little bump up. Interesting market that we're in right now. We have a very high number of houses coming on the market, but the days on market are declining, which means that we don't have enough houses coming on the market compared to what we're selling. We're down to about 3.3 months of inventory right now.
So why do you think more homes are coming on the market? Well,
there's a couple of things. I think that we've been through a long period of time when people were protecting those 3 and 4% mortgages. We're now about 50% of the mortgages that are in place right now are below 6%. So some people are they're getting to a point where they have to sell, so they're starting to turn loose some of those houses. Sellers may be a little bit concerned that the price increases that we've seen over the last few years are not going to continue, so they're starting to think it might be a good time to sell.
What are you hearing from folks who are considering either buying or putting their home on the market?
Well, right now they're being cautious. Buyers are certainly they want to get a deal. They want to get the most for their money. So they're, excuse me, they want to get the most for their money. So they are depending on realtors to help them with the market, to help with that information. Buyers up until just recently have kind of stayed away, but we're seeing them jump back in. We're starting to see signs that buyers are no longer waiting on interest rates to drop back to where they hope they would go. They're actually looking, they're actually knocking on doors to try to get what they're looking for.
Well, the interest rates bounce around. Are they in a spot right now that is acceptable?
I think that they're going to continue to drop some. That's just a personal opinion, but I think that it shows where they are now, and buyers jumping back in. It shows us that buyers believe they're getting to where they're acceptable. And I think if we see them drop a little bit below the 6% mark, I think you're going to see the market really take off and do well, especially here in central and southern Kentucky.
Mike, there was a time where it was very difficult to find anything to show to people, right?
It was. Yeah. There was a time when if you saw a house that you liked, you had to jump on it right away, and you were going to have multiple offer situations. That's not going on so much now. It's rare that you see multiple offers now. You're seeing houses sit on the market for a few days, and so people get an opportunity to, explore financing, to make sure they're making a good decision. This is, of course, one of the major decisions that most families will ever make is purchasing a new home. So they get a little more time to think about that now.
So the median price has jumped to, what is it, $285 at this point?
Yeah,
correct.
$285.
Is that all-time high?
I think
it's higher than it's ever been.
I don't believe there's ever been a time it's been that high. We're going up. We're still going up about 2% a year, but there was a little bit of a jump in the year last year. November was the first month, I believe, in 30 months or something like that we've seen a decrease in the price, but that was a temporary thing. December saw a little bit of a rise back up in price. So,
what drives the price in terms of vis-a-vis the interest rates? In other words, if the rates are high, do people then think they have to back off on the selling price?
Really what's driving the price is we look at the market overall. And a house, what we like to say, a house is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And so if you look at a house that's on the market and you look at their neighborhood and other homes that have sold in that same area that have some of the similar features and different things, again, if somebody's moving in, especially from a market like California, they come into Kentucky and they see that a home in Kentucky that may be $300,000 on the market in California was $500,000 and $600,000. So they may see that as more reasonable than maybe somebody around here would, but they're willing to pay for it. And so sometimes out-of-state buyers coming in drive that a little bit.
It's my understanding we're seeing a lot of that. People coming from outside the market.
And not just in Lexington. I think you're seeing from London, Corbin area, Somerset, all the way into Fayette County and others. We're seeing people come from states like California, from Illinois, and Arizona, and elsewhere. I know Mike's worked
even Florida.
Yes.
Because of the high interest rates in Florida and the hurricanes and so forth. There are people that are moving back from Florida, and we're benefiting from that as well.
So it's more than the price. I mean, they're looking for a lifestyle, right?
Well,
in some cases.
Yeah, and price for us here is relative to other places is very cheap. You know, I sell properties all the time to people who pay cash for them because they took equity out of a property they sold somewhere else and had enough money to pay cash.
What do you tell first-time buyers they need to be doing to position themselves to be able to move fairly quickly if they want to buy and close on a home?
Well, what I like to tell first-time home buyers is don't be house poor. You know, we want you to go talk to your local lender, your local mortgage person, and see what you can afford. But you certainly don't want to go to the top of that market. So start saving a little bit of money to make any necessary repairs or changes you want to make. Start, again, comparing prices of different homes, see what you want in the different neighborhoods. But again, you want to watch your credit. You want to watch what you're spending. You don't want to go buy a new boat and a new truck and then go buy a new house after that. That's going to hurt you a little bit. So we just want to make sure that they're positioned to make the best decision, and again, not be house poor.
Other advice you would give that first-time home buyer?
The first thing I would tell them is to get a realtor. Find a realtor that can work with you and help you, guide you through the process. They're going to tell you first thing to do is go and talk to a loan officer. Get with a loan officer and get advice on what your current financial situation is. Don't believe a lot of the myths that are out there. You do not have to have 20% down to buy a home. You can get into a home for less than that. There are differences between sources of mortgages, so you can shop around and look for the right one. Just because you go to 2 different mortgages and have your credit run, that does not hurt your credit score. That's a myth that's out there. You can shop for the better rates. Look at the total cost of getting that mortgage, though. Look at how much the closing costs are going to be, how much the interest rate's going to be, what you're going to pay for that loan over the life of it.
And if you're in the other position, you are thinking about maybe putting your home on the market this spring, how should you be preparing it for the market?
Well, I mean, one of the best pieces of advice is take care of your home. You know, don't put off maintenance items that need to be done. For instance, gutters. Keep your gutters clean. Keep things looking good. Make the presentation of the home pop. So in way of that, again, preparing for the spring as soon as the weather allows, do a little bit of landscaping. Make it look good and make it appealing and stand out among other listings. So, but again, declutter, simplify, make your home inviting, and just be prepared and be ready.
I spent time in the military, and we always talked about clean, neat, and orderly. Keep that in mind with your house. Clean, neat, and orderly. Yeah. If you've got mildew or something on the siding on your house, pressure wash that. That's a pretty cheap thing to do. NAR has said consistently over the last several years that one of the most important things you can do to sell your home is to upgrade or replace your front door. Not a terribly expensive thing to do, but that's the impression that the buyer gets the first time they walk through the door of the home.
You want it to be move-in ready. You don't want someone coming to look at your home and thinking about all the things they need to do. But again, one of the things Mike said, find a realtor to do that, because we can come in before you put it on the market and advise you, hey, you may want to invest a little money here that will get a better return, because a lot of people want to update different things and they'll spend a fortune on things that may not add a lot of value.
So sometimes you see an ad and it says as is.
Yeah.
You think, well, that means there's a lot of work to be done.
Sure.
It's all on you, right?
I would never advise anybody to advertise their house as is, because first of all, there's no such thing as is, because if somebody brings you the right offer and they ask you to do a little minor repair, you're going to do that repair. So there really isn't any such thing as is, but as is a red flag.
Interesting. Let's talk about this market and Bluegrass Realtors. Again, you operate in Lexington, and then of course the growing cities that surround it, and then down south into London, Corbin, and that area there, also a growth area. So it seems that it is the areas outside Lexington where most of the new construction is. Mm-hmm. Does it continue to be a challenge for realtors that it's difficult to get those new developments underway in Lexington?
Yes, that's a really good question. The challenge of the urban service area, finding adequate places inside Lexington. And as people move up, they start out as renters typically, and then as they move up, they want to own a house and typically want a home with a little yard to it, mm-hmm. and so forth. It gets harder to find that inside Lexington with the urban service area the way it is. So what is happening is a lot of those people that are your lower middle class maybe, or middle class people, are driving into Lexington to work. Your school teachers, your firemen, your policemen. Where I live in Mercer County, there are Lexington police officers who live there. Mm-hmm. I see their cruisers there. So they're having to drive a ways to get into Lexington because there's not an adequate supply of housing in Lexington for them.
And so other areas like, say, Richmond, Madison County, they're allowing more homes to be built?
Yeah, similar. If you look at right close to the Kentucky River in the Richmond, Madison County area, they have the same kind of problem that they do in Lexington. But a little further south, it's a little cheaper to get into a development, be able to make more homes available.
But Lexington also has this issue, trying to provide that balance of having affordable homes and protecting the green spaces and the higher end properties, right?
The very thing that makes this such an attractive place, I always say when you fly in over Calumet and Keeneland coming into the Lexington Airport, it's like flying into a national airport or a national park. The very thing that makes this an attractive place to live is a challenge for us in trying to provide housing for people to live here.
Daniel, what are buyers looking for these days? We know that changes over the years. The McMansion were in a decade ago, and then there were trends after COVID that seemed to change things. But we get the sense that maybe they're changing again.
A little bit. I think they're looking for something that's updated. A lot of people are really going nostalgic again. They're looking for some older homes with some character. They're looking for something that they don't have to do a whole lot of work to. They're looking for great communities where they can raise their families and that they can have decent paying jobs. I think one of the things I'm seeing, you mentioned that our service area is pretty broad, is Bluegrass Realtor Association. Right now we service 38 counties, over 4,000 members in our association, but over 38 counties. But among all of those 38 counties, I think people, again, are looking for safe communities, and again, housing that is not too old, but again, has a nostalgic feel to it, that is updated kitchens, updated bathrooms, updated things that make their life convenient and easy.
Yeah.
People are also looking for quality of life. They're looking for good schools. Mm-hmm. They're looking for high-speed internet. Fortunately, there is a program going on in Kentucky right now to get high-speed internet to the last mile, and people are looking at that. That's probably the number one or number two question mm-hmm. that I get asked when somebody calls about a property is, does it have high-speed internet? They're looking for road network. They're looking for shopping. I think a lot of the things that have been going on for several years in larger states or larger metropolitan areas is people are looking for neighborhoods that have mixed use. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to go so far to shop or something. I think that's why these discount little stores that are showing up. I won't name a name, but around, that's why they're so popular, is because they're close to where people live.
So we're seeing more of that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. We are. And you mentioned builders earlier, and kind of that scenario. I think one thing that builders and developers are looking for is less restrictive zoning. You know, across our 38 counties, that not just in Lexington, but across those counties, we always hear planning and zoning is the more restrictive it becomes, the harder it is for builders to really build what people are looking for, or to make money. Because builders have to make money. That's their livelihood as well. And so one thing that we do as realtors, we are advocates for home ownership and property rights, and that's one thing that we keep an eye on as realtors through advocacy, is making sure that communities are a great place to build and build well.
Anything you hope the legislature does or doesn't do during their session in Frankfort?
Well, I hope they focus on housing supply and not on making it necessarily easier to buy a house. That seems kind of counterintuitive, but if you do things that cause more people to want to buy or whatever, and there's a lower supply of housing, then it just raises the price of housing. So what we need to work on is like Daniel said, relieving the burdens of over restrictions, requiring too many things. We need to figure out some way to incentivize people to develop land, because the cost of developing, with the streets, the curbs, the sidewalks, street lights, underground utilities, and so forth, is prohibitive. And when you need to build affordable housing, smaller houses, which I think is a trend right now for people, when you need to build those houses, you can't recoup the cost as fast on the development as you can if you build the McMansion type houses. So
we work really well with our legislators. Realtors, again, are advocates for our consumers and for private property, and we work really well with the folks in Frankfort, and really try to help them, have open dialogue and conversation when they're crafting legislation, how we can advise them to some things that are best. And so what we hope continues is, of course, that open dialogue. But we also, like Mike said, we want to see local control. It don't always have to be controlled at a state or a federal level. Local control is sometimes better, because what's best for one community may not be a one-size-fits-all.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate you coming in very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We hope you'll stay with us. We will be back with WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey. We'll look back on what we've just been through in just a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT. We've all just been through a rough stretch of Kentucky weather, and the bitterly cold air continues to cause major challenges. WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey sounded the alarm days ahead of the storm and then helped lead us through it. This was something, you identified this when it was still out in the Pacific Ocean.
Right. We started talking about how the hurricane hunters were flying missions into the energy, which was off the California coast at the time, because you could see this coming. It was going to be a monster storm across much of the country. It was just a question of how much of which precipitation type any one location would get. This thing went from Mexico, the border with Mexico, from Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, to Maine, and the border with Canada.
And then it was such a brutal storm,
It was.
And the deal is it changed every few minutes. I mean,
right.
And so, a lot's made about predictions of snow accumulation and all that, but the ice would bring down the snow totals.
Exactly.
And that's what we were watching.
We said it the entire time. The more ice you get, the less snow you get. The more snow you get, we were cheering it on. I kept saying in the days leading up to this, we got to cheer on the snow, because if not, then we're in trouble. And unfortunately, we got in trouble because we had more sleet and freezing rain. But the impact of this, regardless of whatever precipitation type you had at any one location, it was a moisture-laden storm. That's a fancy way of saying it was going to put it down no matter what it was, and it did.
Well, you said if it had been rain, we probably would have had a flood.
We picked up about almost 3 inches worth of rain into eastern Kentucky. If you melt the snow, the sleet, the freezing rain down and combine it with a little bit of rain they had there into eastern Kentucky. You had parts of that region, Bill, that had 3 inches of liquid precipitation that weekend. Had all that been rain, you'd have been talking about flooding on the Kentucky River, the Licking River, and the Cumberland River.
It was the ice we all feared the most for obvious reasons, because it lays on the power lines and causes all kinds of issues. Some areas got more than others.
100%. You got into south of Lexington, into the area from southern Madison County over toward Garrett County, and then down into south central Kentucky toward the Kentucky-Tennessee border counties. The middle of Saturday evening, we started to highlight that area. We made a map that said this is an ice storm coming, and those areas picked up. I think the greatest I saw was right at around 9/10 of an inch of freezing rain. That's ice accretion. That it was on the power lines, the trees, and then you saw as you got toward the Tennessee border what happened. It got worse as you crossed the border into Tennessee, where it was just a pure ice storm in Nashville down to Oxford, Mississippi. At least in Kentucky, even into the hardest hit areas, you still started it out with 3 inches of snow. Then you had an inch or so of sleet, and then you went over to the freezing rain, and then you ended it as a little bit of snow.
Without the benefit of fancy graphics and just a little science lesson here for folks who have a little time to look back on all of this now and realize how this happened. How is it that it can be so cold and you have, different forms of precipitation like freezing rain?
Sure. Okay, let's think about it like this. Think of this as the clouds. You've got snowflakes that are coming from the clouds. Down here, this is where we live, all right? So you got the column of air in between the clouds and the ground. You have snowflakes falling through. And then all of a sudden, there somewhere, in this case, about 4,000 or 5,000 feet above where we live, you had a layer of temperatures that were above freezing. So you've got a below freezing here, above freezing here, and then we were below freezing down here at the ground level.
So it turns back into rain. 4,000 feet above.
Right, but it does not have enough time to freeze into sleet. So all that, as it just hit on contact and just iced up instantly. That's how you get freezing rain. And unfortunately for us, Bill, is that we're not able to sample the atmosphere from cloud to ground in every location at every moment of the day.
Sure.
We only get balloon launches that do that, and the closest balloon launches we get are Nashville, Tennessee, and Wilmington, Ohio.
And it was a different experience, just one county to the next.
Oh, 100%. We had greater than 12 inches of snow into northern Kentucky, and then you had the ice storm into the southern half of the state.
The bitter cold continues to be harsh. It has been this way now, as this program is airing over the weekend, we've been more than a week into this. It's rough. What is providing that?
It's an endless supply of Arctic air. And now you think about it, not only are we getting these Arctic high pressures to come right out of the North Pole, kiddos, but now that we've got this snowpack in place that goes all the way, snow and ice, into the northern Gulf states, through the Tennessee Valley, through Kentucky. Well, from Kentucky through Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, through Canada, all the way to the North Pole, now there's nothing but snow on the ground that entire length of that piece of real estate. So the air never has time to moderate because it's coming over a snowpack the entire trip down into Kentucky now.
Wow.
And it's not a record-breaking cold. It's the longevity of it. It's the prolonged cold wave.
The good thing, if there was anything good about this situation, was we did have some time to prepare.
We did.
And people generally seem to have heeded the advice.
Yeah, we were sharing stories all week from officials, and I think it may have been the Montgomery County Police or the Sheriff's Department there in Mount Sterling. They were talking about how they were surprised at how little accidents they had because people really heeded the advice and did not get out and try to drive in it. So they did heed the warnings about this, which is a good thing. Now, Kentucky, as we're taping this and as it's airing, is still pretty much shut down from that storm because of the cold and just the pure longevity of this. And, unfortunately, we're now going into February.
We remind ourselves that winter isn't over.
It's not over by a long shot.
And we have seen significant snows and winter ice and activity in March and beyond.
Yeah, right. I can remember growing up in eastern Kentucky, early April 1987, Pike County, I think, had 30 inches of snow. 2 days after it had been 75 degrees. We don't want anything like that, but as I look at the month of February, on my winter forecast, Bill, I was hopeful that we would kind of turn the corner and have a little early spring. It's not going to happen this year. This is a pattern that is kind of locked in place, and while it's not going to be as extreme all the time as what we've been seeing, from time to time into February and even early March, don't be surprised if we aren't talking about a few more winter storms and Arctic outbreaks across the land.
Before you know it, we do have to, though, start getting ready for spring severe weather season.
Right.
And it kicks off, early?
Early March is severe weather preparedness time in Kentucky. And, we look back at years past, we've had severe weather outbreaks in February. And that severe weather season that is just around the corner, it's hard to believe that it is almost here. So even as we're talking snow, ice, and brutal cold, this is the time of year for folks to start thinking ahead to severe weather and the safety plans and the safety preparedness for schools and homes and businesses alike. And, a big thing right now for a lot of folks out there, Bill, is storm shelters. There's been a big,
more and more of them.
blow up of businesses that are installing storm shelters. And given how extreme the weather's been here in Kentucky with the numerous tornado outbreaks we've had, goodness, just this decade, folks are wanting those.
As we wrap up this discussion, we talked about this decade. It's very interesting.
Oh, gosh.
2020, which was the horrible COVID year.
It was,
obviously.
That's right.
But it was a nice classic year with the seasons.
It was a beautiful year.
And then
it was beautiful.
It was.
And then as soon as we hit 2021, if you recall, January into February, we had the back-to-back ice storms.
Yep.
And then we followed that up with massive flooding along the Kentucky River in much of eastern Kentucky. And from there, it was game on. Mayfield, you had the deadly flooding in eastern Kentucky. You had the shutdown snowstorms and the bitter cold temperatures, the massive flooding this year. You'd think Mother Nature would cut us a little break sometime, right?
A lot of volatility.
Yeah, we still have 4 years to go in this decade.
We deserve a break. All right, thanks for stopping by. I know and a great job, and it's been I know a tough couple of weeks. All right, everybody, stay with us. We'll wrap up Kentucky Newsmakers in a moment. Before we go, as the Kentucky legislative session continues, we'll continue to cover that on WKYT, on air and online. We thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers, and we hope you make it a good week ahead.